Alright, now something that's always bothered me about the whole USB microphone market is something that I've always kept hearing people ask for, is a microphone that'll cancel a lot of background noise out and just home in on their voice for, when they're streaming or playing games and chatting in comms. But the problem about that is a lot of USB microphones out there are condenser microphones. Condenser microphones are really good for capturing detail and making you sound real good, but at the same time, they also capture a lot of background noise very easily. What doesn't capture a lot of background noise very easily and is known to just kind of focus in on your voice more is a dynamic microphone, but there are very, very few dynamic microphones that can be powered through USB, and this is one of them. This is the Samson Q9U. Let's talk about it. Out the box, you're going to get the microphone, a windscreen, a USB-A to USB-C cable, a USB-C to USB-C cable, and some paperwork. Taking a closer look at the microphone, it has a very solid metal build with looks that are very similar to the legendary Shure SM7B, especially after you put the windscreen on it. Off to the side of the microphone, you will find the mute button. On the bottom, you'll find a mid-booster switch as well as a bass roll-off switch, otherwise known as a high-pass filter switch, and there's also an input for headphone monitoring as well as an XLR port input and a USB-C input. And the special thing about this microphone is you can use either of those ports to run this microphone, whether you just want to plug a USB-C cable to the microphone to your computer and call it a day, or maybe you want to take it up a notch and use an XLR cable from this microphone to an audio interface. It's really up to you, but the thing about this is a dynamic microphone that gives you the option of USB. Most dynamics out there, like I've said before, don't have that option. You only have the XLR option. Having the ability to just run this microphone through USB allows you to essentially bypass having to get extra cables and an audio interface to just run the microphone. With this, it lets you just get started with a dynamic so you can have that, that noise cancellation you want without having to get a bunch of extra equipment and just have it all in one go. Now, for people who want to use this microphone through the XLR port, you now have an option to not need to bring your entire setup when you want to go mobile with this thing. So you're going to do a podcast at someone else's place, or you're going to use this microphone to record off location. You don't have to take your whole setup. You can just run it through USB in that current time, and when you come back to your place, you plug it back into your XLR setup. So there's that. Now, with all that being said, let's test this noise canceling ability of this microphone, because that's the thing most people want to know. So right now, I've been recording this whole video on this thing, and this is how the microphone, of course, sounds like when I'm in front of it. And if I get closer, we can get the proximity effect to essentially get more bass notes. I have to be a little quieter because my sensitivity is a bit up, but now you can get a bit more of my bassy sounds typically when you're recording off a microphone, like a dynamic especially. I mean, even with a microphone like this, which is a condenser microphone, being closer to the microphone is generally better for the sound quality. But if you want to sit back from here and talk a bit louder, this is what it's going to sound like. And a question I've had a friend ask me is what if I want to use it next to someone, because your setup is close to them. So if I was, say, your partner or your best friend, this is how it's going to sound if I'm facing it. But if I'm doing my own work and I'm doing my own voice chat, this is how much it's going to catch if I'm just right next to the person. And, that's if I'm all the way over here. And if you notice, it barely catches me at all. In contrast, if I record off a condenser microphone like this Blue Spark over here, which is similarly priced to the Samson Q9U, this is how it's going to sound if I'm talking right in front of it, versus if I'm away from it, I'm a friend or a partner and I'm talking over here, it catches my voice a little bit better than the Samson would, and this is not exactly ideal. Alright, now here's where the magic of noise canceling happens with these type of microphones, especially dynamics. Dynamics like it when you're close to the microphone, but to do so, of course, I have to lower the sound level in my computer settings from 90, which I had it earlier, down to around 75, which it's at right now. But because of this, it can still capture my voice quite well if I'm at this distance, and I get a pretty clear sound. But because it's now less sensitive at that rate and still captures my voice like so, if I move off to the side, it's less likely to hear me. So I'm going to move off and, do that test again where I'm over here, just to see if it captures me at all, in which case not much sound is captured as I'm talking from over here. So then, if I have to face it just to get a little louder, but even then it doesn't capture my voice all that much. I'm not sure if you heard all of that banter off to the side was just so you can tell how quiet my voice gets if I were to be sitting next to another person. Alright, for those of you who are curious, this is how the microphone is going to sound with the XLR port plugged into a cloud lifter all the way into a Motu M2 audio interface. Now, mind you, if you decide to use the XLR port for this microphone, the gain on it isn't the greatest, so it will need a little bit of a boost from the cloud lifter so it can be heard. Otherwise, you're going to be boosting up your gain settings on your audio interface, and it's just going to get real bad. Anyway, this is how this sounds, so let's test how it's going to sound if there's someone next to you talking for volume versus my volume in front of it. So a friend over here would be like talking over here, and you get some sort of sound in terms of volume, and it's definitely quieter, but you know, what did you expect? That's just how it's going to sound. The banter over there you didn't really have to hear. It was just a test to see if you can hear me and whether, you know, it's that loud or audible compared to being in front of it. Now, if there was one thing this microphone wasn't so good at, it probably had to do with the fact that it doesn't have a shock mount on it, but that's just the way I set it up, where I have it just on like a table mount, where it's just a microphone on a piece of metal on a stand on my table. And, you know, you may be wondering what's so wrong about this. Well, what's wrong is it can get all the vibrations from my table. So if I tap on my table, you can hear all those sounds. That's just me tapping my fingers on the table, and the vibrations running from the table to the stand to the microphone. That means that if I type my WASD keys and my space key when I'm jumping, it'll also capture those sounds a bit while I'm talking, so you can hear it a bit. So if you're going to get this kind of microphone, or just, you know, this particular Samson microphone, I do recommend getting like a spring-loaded sort of boom arm versus having it on a desk mount. But, you know, if you're light-fingered, I guess it's not so bad, but it's really up to you, honestly. Like, if this is all you can do and this is all you can do, well, still works. It's really up to you, but I do think having it on, like, a shock mount of some sort, or, like, just on a boom arm might be just a bit more ideal. Anyway, with this particular microphone aside, now you know why I actually would recommend, like, more dynamic microphones become more accessible to the public by having USB on them, like this guy. Like, if we can have more dynamics out there that can be easily run through USB, I think a lot of people would be very happy, just because of the whole noise canceling aspect that this dynamic microphone naturally has. Other dynamic microphones can also do this, don't get me wrong. It's just that this one actually has a USB port you can run it through. But if you have the whole audio interface system, I mean, yeah, go ahead. The whole world is now your oyster, and you can pick really nice dynamic microphones out there. Like, well, I actually started with this one. This is the Shure 55SH. Anyway, it's a pretty microphone, it's a solid microphone, but it's not a very good microphone. But it's essentially what got me into getting the whole like the cloud lifter and the whole audio interface and into XLR microphones. This was my little gateway drug. I don't recommend this microphone to most people, especially if you have a deep voice. This microphone was very good for canceling out background noise, but it was very bad at capturing deep voices, so that's why I don't use it very much, but sometimes I do because it's kind of fun. Anyway, that's also why I recommend this microphone, because it actually captures my lower ranges just decently. I think it can do a little bit better, but for most people, I think you'll be very happy with this microphone just because it's a dynamic, and therefore you get that noise canceling ability. You can run it through USB if you want to, and if you want to upgrade into the future to having all the whole fancy setup, you could if you want to, but if you don't and this is good enough for you, then you can just stick to that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have today. So if you do want to buy this microphone, I'm gonna leave a link in the description. If you do want to like get it, it's also gonna be like an affiliate link, so if you use that link to buy it from, I'll get a slight kickback to essentially help run this channel. Mind you, nowadays I am also on Twitch. I'm kind of on and off trying to figure that stuff out, but you know, I'm gonna leave that in the description if you want to see me play games and chat and ask me questions or whatnot. Some of you guys have been showing up and asking me questions, makes me real happy. You know, it's like a Q&A while I'm playing games. Granted, I do get distracted in the midst of battle, so do note that happens sometimes. Anyway, guys, if this video has helped you out at all and you like this video, do leave me a like, because it'll help me with this whole algorithm space thing. Subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys next time. On hindsight, this video seemed a little bit messy, but honestly, I'm actually making this video because a good friend of mine asked me about this stuff, and I figured it'd be a good subject to talk about. So here it is. You're welcome.